Today we are discussing the disciplinary proceedings against an employee, a employee who is a state employee. So what will be we will discuss about the procedure which has to be followed at the time of disciplinary proceeding, the rights which are given to a delinquent officer, as well as shortfalls which we as a lawyer can get benefit of in the courts. So I will divide my session into three parts. First of all, I will give the brief summary how the disciplinary proceedings have to be done. Then I will take it to a judicial conclusions, how what kind of cases comes before the court and how those cases have to be dealt with, and then we will go through the question and answer session. So first of all, we have to understand what is disciplinary proceedings. As you all know that there can be three type of government employee. We have already discussed that. I will not go into that. Central government, state government, and statutory employees all have their own set of service rules. You have to see the specific service rule of certain employee. If he is a central government employee, you have to go by central civil service rules, state with state civil service, and statutory corporation employee with statutory bodies rules. Then under the punishment and appeal rules, the disciplinary proceedings is deemed to be initiated from the day when the charge sheet is given to an employee. Whatever is done before issuance of charge sheet, that is not part of disciplinary proceedings. Disciplinary proceeding starts from the day when the charge sheet is given to an employee. Now, what is the charge sheet and what are the main ingredients of the charge sheet? Just to give a background, like we will take an example of an employee. It will be very easy to understand with the example. Like supposedly the Karan is a government employee. He is working with the government and there is a complaint against him by XYZ person. By reading that complaint, we come to a conclusion that he has done some act which is completely against the conduct rules, or otherwise which is sufficient to take action against Karan. Then the authority have two options. Authority will show him the document, the complaint which has been received against him. The authority will ask for his comments, and then on the basis of his reply, the authority will either issue charge sheet or will file the case. In case they are okay with the reply given by Karan, then they will drop the inquiry itself. And in case they are not happy with the reply given by the Karan, then they will issue charge sheet. Just before giving the charge sheet, they can do one more thing. If it is a complicated case where they have to take technical decisions also, in those cases, what they can do is they can send the complete file to a fact-finding inquiry. The fact-finding inquiry will do what? The fact-finding inquiry will go into the facts and circumstances of the complaint, and they will take evidence. It is not specific evidence, but they will take statements of XYZ officers or other complainant, etc., to see whether there is a prima facie case against a person or no. In case a prima facie case is there, the fact-finding inquiry will give their report, and on the basis of that report, the charge sheet will be issued. Now, there are specific 4 ingredients which have to be part of charge sheet. In case any of the ingredient is not there, then the charge sheet is void ab initio. Those 4 ingredients are, firstly, the statement of charge. The statement of charge is a document which shows what all charges have been leveled against a person in case he has done some act or has conducted himself against certain provisions of law. Then the statement of charge will tell that either his act was against the provisions of conduct rule, so he has done something which is completely against the conduct rules governing his service, or the charge will tell that what kind of thing he has done which is a good and sufficient reason to charge him. These can be of different kinds, like insufficiency, insubordination, absence from duty, etc., etc. There can be many. The only thing that they have to see is, one, either it is breach of conduct rule. Second, there is good and sufficient reason to charge him. So first is statement of charge, which will tell in brief what are the charges against a person. Then the second document is statement of allegation. Statement of allegation will tell the complete facts and circumstances which will support the charge given in the statement of charge. Like, charge will be, first charge is that he was absent from duty from X date to Y date. Then the allegation will tell, statement of allegation will tell that what all have been done by the authorities also. Like, he was sent notice first, he never came back, he was told that he has to come back, even his, in case he has given leave, then his leave has not been considered, and he was told that he has to come back and he has not joined. So this all will be from the statement of allegation. Then the third document is list of documents. Whatever documents the department is placing reliance upon against a delinquent officer, all those documents have to be part of list of documents. And then the fourth and last is list of witnesses. They have to give the complete list of witnesses. Once the charge sheet is issued to an employee, then he will be granted an opportunity to file his reply within 30 days. In case the reply comes, then they will consider the reply. In case they are okay with his reply, then the charges will be dropped. And in case they feel that even in his reply he is not able to convince the authorities that the charges which are leveled against him, he has not done anything wrong, then the next step would be either the punishing authority will inquire into charges itself, or the punishing authority will appoint an inquiry officer. Now, this is one thing which is very important here is that there can be two kinds of allegations against a person. One kind of allegations can be of minor nature, where the minor penalty can be given to a person, and he can, after giving minor penalty, he can do whatever he wants to do. If he wants to challenge, he can challenge in appeal, and then second appeal and revision. And second are those where a person is has done something which the authority thinks will tantamounts to a major penalty. In case of minor penalty, once the charge sheet is issued, he is given opportunity of hearing. After giving reply, the authority can straight away give him the minor penalty. The difference between, we should understand the difference between the minor penalty and major penalty also. Minor penalties are those penalties which do not affect the service condition of an employee for a long term, like censure is given to a person, or increment is stopped for 1 year or 2 years without cumulative effect. All these cases are those cases which comes under the definition of minor penalty, because it doesn't affect his service for a longer period of time. That is why only the opportunity of hearing is required, nothing more than that. As far as major penalty is concerned, we all know that the service of employee is governed by the Constitution itself. Chapter 14 of our Constitution deals with the service of a person under the state, union as well as under the state. And Article 311 deals with what all procedures have to be followed in case a major punishment of removal from service, termination, etc. has to be granted to an employee. So there is a constitutional protection given to every state employee. That is why it is very relevant that the complete inquiry proceedings have to be followed. Otherwise, it will be the complete inquiry will not be in consonance with the mandatory provisions of the Constitution, and that can be set aside. So once the inquiry officer is appointed, or the punishing authority takes upon itself that it will take into consideration the charges against a person, they will issue a notice to the department as well as to the delinquent officer. Once the notice is issued to the department as well as the delinquent officer, the delinquent officer, as per new civil service rules of 2016 of state of Haryana, the delinquent officer has a right to get a the help of a government employee or a retired government employee. Prior to 2016, it was not mandatory provision that he has to ask for the help of government employee, but now the right has been given to him that he can take benefit of a government employee or a retired government employee for that sake. In case there are cases where the charges are so which are defined in conduct rules or specific rules of the department, which will tantamount to a major penalty of removal from service. In those cases, he can also get benefit of help of a legal counsel. Now it has been provided under 2016 rule that he has a right to have a legal counsel to defend his case. Now, these are the rights of the delinquent officer. Now, the notice will also go to the department. The department at that relevant stage will appoint a presiding officer. Presiding officer, a presenting officer. Presenting officer means the officer who will present the case of the department before the inquiry officer. I am just giving the brief background. The complete details we will see in detail when we will deal it as per the litigation point of view. We will have a bird view of litigation also, then we will deal with the complete points. So once the inquiry starts, in inquiry first, on the basis of document and on the basis of list of witnesses, the witnesses will be called. They will be examined by the presenting officer, and he can in case he wants to cross-examine those witnesses, he will be granted opportunity to cross-examine them. But this opportunity of cross-examination is not a right given to him. There can be certain cases where cross-examination can be denied to a delinquent officer also. What can be those circumstances? Those circumstances can be the circumstance where the same person has given a statement before a competent court of civil or criminal jurisdiction and he was cross-examined by the officer there, or in some other proceedings he has given his witness and he was cross-examined there. In case he is cross-examined there, then the inquiry officer can say that you can't cross-examine him now. Thereafter, after taking the complete prosecution witness, then the inquiry officer will ask the delinquent officer to submit his reply, which will give the complete summary plus list of witnesses, whichever the delinquent officer want to call, and the list of documents with the relevant documents. All those documents will be given to the inquiry officer. On the basis of those documents, then one by one the persons would be summoned, and the presenting officer will have a right to cross-examine that person. Now here, there is one very relevant aspect which I should tell each and every person here. Although there is a law which says that no person can be judge of his own cause, but there is an exception in inquiry proceedings. In inquiry proceedings, even the inquiry officer has a right to ask question in case he is not clear about what the witness has said, or he thinks that there are certain questions which can be asked to clarify the charges. He can ask those questions from the delinquent, from the witnesses. After the completion of witnesses, etc., the inquiry report is made by the inquiry officer. Now, inquiry report which has to be submitted by the inquiry officer to the punishing authority, that should specifically deal with each and every charge leveled against an officer with the help of facts, circumstances, allegation, witnesses. It should tell the complete details what the witness has told, by what witness he comes to a conclusion that a person is not has not done such act, or a person is guilty of doing such act or omission. there can be one more circumstance. Very interestingly, before the inquiry officer, there can be one more circumstance where a person pleads guilty. Person says that yes, I admit that I have done so, and he pleads guilty. In those circumstances, only the procedure of having evidence will be done away with, but the inquiry officer has to give his finding even on the admission made by a person, that under what circumstances he has made those admission, and he has to give a specific inquiry report stating that there was 3 charges against him. Out of 3 charges, on first charge he has admitted this, on second charge he has admitted this, and on third charge he has admitted this. Thereafter, the inquiry report will be sent to the punishing authority. Now, the inquiry report can be in favor of delinquent officer or against him. In case it is in favor of delinquent officer, then the authority has 3 rights. Authority can say that we are in consonance with the report given by the authority, by the inquiry officer, and the charges can be dropped against a person. Second, if the authority feels that there are sufficient reasons to believe that inquiry officer has not conducted the inquiry in proper way, meaning thereby he has not followed the complete rules provided under the rules, then the authority can write down their dissenting note and can ask for re-inquiry also. But re-inquiry can only be done in those cases where the technical errors are there. Technical error, the inquiry officer makes technical errors, like the cross-examination of witnesses are not done, or the specific witness of the department is not called before the, in those cases, they can give a dissenting note and re-inquiry can be done only in cases where technical objections are there. If there is no technical objection, but factually and on the basis of documents, the authority come to a conclusion that the inquiry, the finding of the inquiry officer is not right, then they will write down their dissenting note upon the inquiry report, and then the copy of the inquiry report with the dissenting note will go to the delinquent officer. Now, this is very relevant. At this stage, either while giving the copy of the inquiry report itself to the delinquent officer, or giving the dissenting note, written dissenting note with the inquiry officer's report to a person, to a delinquent employee, the authority should not have applied their mind upon the what punishment has to be given to a person. There are judgments which specifically says that in case the authority at this stage has applied their mind and come to a conclusion that the person has to be given XYZ penalty, then they have taken away the biggest right of a person to represent himself against the finding of the inquiry officer's report. The basic purpose of giving this benefit to an employee is that when the actual mind is applied by the authority that what penalty has to be granted to a person should have a right to give a specific point-wise detailed reply to the findings of inquiry officer's report, so that when the authority is dealing with the case, they are not dealing with a prejudicial mind. They have not prejudged the decision. That is the basic reason that this has to be given. Thereafter, once the reply comes from the delinquent officer, then either the authority can drop charges in case they think that the whatever the person is saying is right. Secondly, they can then issue the second show cause notice. Now, in second show cause notice, they will tell that we have gone through your complete case, and as per the complete case, we find that XYZ charges against you are proved, you are not able to show from your reply, they have to pass a speaking order, and then the punishment will be granted. Once the punishment is granted, there is provision of appeal. The appeal can be filed within 45 days. Then the second appeal can be filed in case there is second appellate authority within 60 days. The first appeal 45 days can maximum be extended by another 45 days by the authority in case he is able to show specific cause. Thereafter, after second appeal, there is a revision which can be filed before the government itself, and government can take a decision in the revision, and then the complete departmental proceeding attains finality. There is a provision of review also. Review is with the government, and there is a provision of revision also. In case a punishment is granted to a person, he can directly approach to the government also, or the government can suo motu, call for the record also to see whether the punishment has been granted rightly or wrongly. So there is provision of review also. This is complete departmental proceeding which takes place in any government employee, in case of any government employee. Now we will deal with how the cases come before the court, at what stages cases comes before the court, and what all things we have to consider while dealing with certain cases as a civil service lawyer. You know, you will be amazed to know that there can be 4 types by which a person can be thrown out of service. One is removal from service. Second is termination. Third is dismissal. And then compulsory retirement. There can be 4 ways a person can be thrown out of service. Now you will say, what is the difference between the dismissal, termination and removal? All are same. The person is thrown out of service, but it is not like that. In case of dismissal, not only the person, the right of a person on that post is taken away, but the person is disqualified from any future appointment in any kind of government service. So in the case of dismissal, there is disqualification for future prospects also. In case of removal, although he is removed from service, but there will be no disqualification for his future service. Termination means discharge from service, except as removal or dismissal. In most of the temporary employees or an employee who is not a regular employee, you will find a word termination. Termination is neither removal nor dismissal, but it means that a person is thrown out of service, and then there is compulsory retirement, irrespective of the fact that how much time he has spent upon the, you all know that a person is retired after a specific time, like 58 years in some case, 60 in some case, 62 in some case. Compulsory retirement as a punishment means that on the basis of finding of the inquiry officer and on the punishing authority deems it appropriate to end the service of a person there and then. But in that case, he will get his retiral benefit if he has done the requisite amount of service as per the pension rules, etc. Now, as far as cases before the High Court is concerned, though the disciplinary proceeding starts from the stage of charge sheet, when the person is charged. But for us as a lawyer, the case starts right from the day when the complaint is made. Because as soon as complaint is made against a person, or an authority is of the opinion that he has done some act or he has not done something which he should have done, he is suspended right away. As most of you know that suspension as a principle is not a punishment. All the law says that suspension is not a punishment. Suspension is done only to take care of a situation where a person sitting on his post is not able to influence the witnesses or the complainant. That is the reason why the suspension is done. Now, under the new rules 2016, because we are dealing with those, suspension, because there is suspension is not taken as a punishment by the authorities, and there we have seen in lot many cases that suspension is used as a tool against a government employee by the department to make him work as per the whims and fancies of the senior officer. So there are certain things which are benefits which are granted to a person during the suspension period. The first benefit which is granted is subsistence allowance. Suspension doesn't mean that he will not be paid salary. He will be paid subsistence allowance, which can start from 50% and can go up to 90% also. Secondly, under the new rules, Haryana Civil Service Rules 2016, a person can be suspended in 3 cases. One, where departmental inquiry is initiated or the authority is of the view that the departmental inquiry has to be contemplated against that person. In that case, he can be suspended. In case the departmental inquiry is going on, he can be suspended for any number of times. As far as contemplation is concerned, where the departmental inquiry is not started, means charge sheet has not been given to a person. In those cases, suspension can be at most of 90 days. In case in 3 months, no charge sheet is issued to a person, then he has a right to get back into service. But this 90 days can be extended to 90 days more, but to extend those more than for 90 days, a written order has to be passed where they will tell the facts and circumstances under which he was not able to show cause. He was not able to give, the authority was not able to give charge sheet to that employee. It has to be in written. So this is benefit granted to a person so that in case of frivolous complaints, etc., a person is not kept out of service for more than 90 days. Secondly, a person can be suspended in case there is a criminal case against him. He can be suspended right away. Then there can be there can be deemed suspension. Deemed suspension means even if the authority comes to know at a later stage about X, Y, there are 2-3 eventualities, then he will be deemed to be suspended. First is in case a person is under custody, legal custody for more than 48 hours. In case he is in legal custody for more than 48, he will be deemed to be suspended from the date of his custody. Secondly, in case he is convicted for any offense for which the punishment is more than 48 hours, then also he will be deemed to be suspended. Now, there can be a case where a person is dismissed from service, he files an appeal. In appeal, the authority come to a conclusion, the appellate authority come to a conclusion that there were certain flaws, and his dismissal order is set aside, and the authority again send back the appellate authority again send back the case to the authority to decide afresh. In that case, the total amount of period which he has gone under termination or removal from service will be deemed to be a period of suspension. So in case a case of suspension comes to you, you have to see firstly whether the charge sheet has been issued or not. In case the charge sheet has not been issued, then whether 90 days have passed or not. Suspension is not in as a right, you can't ask for relief in suspension cases, but yes, in case you are able to show that even from the reading of the complaint itself, no offenses made out against him, no specific, there is no case of, there is no good and sufficient reason for which he can be charge sheeted, then you can always file a case of suspension, against suspension. Now, after suspension, the second cases are the cases where the departmental inquiry has been initiated. As a service lawyer, almost everybody tell the client that once the initiation of inquiry has started, the charge sheet has been given to a person. Thereafter, court do not interfere in the cases, and court will only interfere when the final order will be passed. So you may or may not try your luck, but in most of the cases, the court will not deal with it. But there can be circumstances where the court can deal into the charges, etc., even during the pendency of inquiry proceedings. Those circumstances are where the principle of natural justice are not being followed. Now, what are the principle of natural justice? We all know principle of natural justice means that opportunity of hearing should be granted to a person. There should be no bias. But I have divided it into three parts. For my understanding, I have divided this into three parts. First, I say that reasonable opportunity of hearing, which we also say audio alterum partem, the principle of audio alterum partem. I has gone a step further to say that in audio alterum partem, the principle is very wide. So we can file a case in case a person is not granted opportunity to file reply to his charge sheet, or the documents annexed with the charge sheet are not supplied to him, or the list of witnesses has not been supplied, or the documents on the basis of which he is being charged that has not been supplied, or he has not been given opportunity to cross-examine, or he has not been given opportunity to give his facts of cases. These all opportunities come under the opportunity of audio alterum partem. Then there can be a cases of biasness. Biasness can be of different kind. There can be departmental bias also. There can be biasness of inquiry officer also. But for those cases, because for those cases, the stage to take a specific plea is a stage when inquiry officer is appointed. That is the only reason that you should challenge that order right away. Inquiry officer is appointed, you give your representation to change inquiry officer for XYZ reasons. I can tell you the reasons also, just to give an example. You can say that this inquiry officer has done 10 inquiries where the inquiry has been marked by my department only, and in all 10 inquiries he has give a finding in favor of the department, and out of those 10, 8 have been set aside by the higher authorities, etc. So it can be one of the reasons. Second can be the inquiry officer is lower than the rank of a person. Then he can come to a court and he can say that how can you appoint an inquiry officer who is lower than my rank? Then there can be cases where inquiry officer is known to you. He may be out of your department, but he is known to you, and there is some enmity between you, and you make a specific representation to the authorities that please change my inquiry officer, and they don't hear that. In that case also you can come to the court. So these are the cases where on the basis of biasness you can come to the court. Then there can be third case where your punishing authority itself is a complaining authority, and instead of sending the case to the inquiry officer, he take upon himself he becomes inquiry officer himself. Then also you can say that a person cannot be a judge of in his own case. So you can come before the court. So these are basically cases where you can come before the completion of inquiry. Now the question arises, in case the inquiry is completed, then there is a provision of appeal, second appeal, revision, review. Then why and on what grounds the court would interfere in cases filed by us as a counsel? I should tell you as a matter of fact that whenever you file a writ petition against a departmental inquiry, you should never base your pleadings on the basis of the discussion made by the inquiry officer or the findings of the inquiry officer. You should not challenge it on the basis of facts and circumstances of the case. Those can be challenged. Those can, if you will challenge it on facts and circumstances, court will always tell you that please go into appeal. These all can be taken into consideration by the appellate authority. So please go into the appeal and the appellate authority will deal into that. So please don't plead that. Then what should we plead? We have to plead two things. That the principle of natural justice have not been followed. And secondly, there were lacunas in the inquiry itself. Lacuna means that there were XYZ reasons. The inquiry officer has not given his report as per the rules framed, because the rule specifically tells how the inquiry officer has to give his report. The proceedings before the inquiry officer were not written by the inquiry officer. These can be grounds, technical grounds, on the basis of which you can file appeal. Then there can be one more eventuality. Like in case an inquiry was marked by the senior most officer, or say a minister, like XYZ minister, health minister of Haryana was very, in last 2-3 years, he has made numerous complaints against the officers, and the inquiries have been conducted against them. So in case the inquiry is done on the basis of a senior officer or a government authority, in those cases, you can always plead and come before the court and say that since the complaint was made by a senior officer himself, or the complaint was made by the government itself, so the filing of appeal would virtually mean sending my complete case from the Caesar to his wife. Now this is a very interesting preposition. This you will find from a judgment in Dhampur Sugar Mills versus State of UP. Citation is 2007, volume 8, SCC 338. In this case, the citation repeat 2007, volume 8, SCC 338. In this case, policy decision was taken by the department, by the state government. On the basis of policy decision, the department issued certain instructions. Those instructions were challenged on administrative side by some person, and challenging that the decision came against him. So he filed a writ petition. In a writ petition, it was pleaded that since there is appeal, statutory appeal, so he should go there. But the court said that since the policy decision was taken by the government itself, so in case the appeal is filed before the government, then the filing of appeal would virtually mean that you are sending a case from Caesar to his wife, nothing more than that. Then there is one more case which we always use, whenever there is a question that how this writ is meant alternative remedy, then there is Whirlpool versus Registrar Trademarks, 1998, Volume 8, SEC 1.
Name again. What's the name?
Whirlpool versus Registrar Trademark. In this case, the Supreme Court said that this plea of alternative remedy or bar of jurisdiction on the basis of alternative remedy is not a legal bar. This bar is a self-imposed restriction which the court has imposed upon itself. So in case you are able to show that the principle of natural justice are not being followed, or you are able to show that there is lacuna in the inquiry itself, the writ petition can be entertained by the court. But I can assure you as a matter of facts that on the basis of pleadings on the basis of facts, no court will interfere except in one case. There also I am giving you an exception, because there can be cases where you are not able to find any lacuna. Then also I am giving you an exception on the basis of which you can file your case. It is called Wednesbury principle. You all must have heard about that. You can say before the applying the Wednesbury principle, you can say to a court that look, that these are the facts, these are the circumstances, these are the complete chain of list evidence which came in my case, and if I read complete of it, no person on earth will be able to come to a conclusion on which the inquiry officer or the punishing authority has come. Or you can also plead under the Wednesbury principle itself, you can also plead that there were evidence on record produced by me or by the authority which should have been read and have not been read by the inquiry officer. Hence, his judgment is bad in eyes of law. Or the third can be that I came with certain evidence which is there on record but has not been dealt by the inquiry officer or by the punishing authority. On these three principles, you can always challenge on the facts also. Now, the question comes that whether the charge sheet can be given by the punishing authority, appointing authority, or by controlling authority also. In 1996, it is 1996 volume 4 SEC 708 is the judgment. 1996 volume 4 SEC 708. ESI versus Abdul Razak. It is used in different cases, but I will tell you point wise so that it is easy for you to make notes also, and it is easy for you to use also. In this case, the court for the first time said the question came before the court that whether the charge sheet can be given by the controlling authority also. There is a difference between appointing authority, punishing authority, and controlling authority. Appointing authority is a person who appoint a person. This is given under the specific general appointment and terms of service rules of every employee, that who is his appointing authority, who is his punishing authority. But the controlling authority means under whose active control a person works. So even the controlling authority can issue charge sheet to a person. Now, one eventuality which can come to you is ex parte inquiry. In case the inquiry is done ex parte, person was not there, then the question comes how the service has to be proved. Now, in most of the cases, you understand that in case the department is able to prove that the postal services was done, registered post was, summons were sent by registered post, and they are able to prove that the registry came back to them, that proves the service of charges. But in service law, the actual service of charge sheet has to be proved. They have to prove that actually the charge sheet was served upon a person. Two judgments you can note: 1998 volume 7 SEC 569, Union of India versus Diranath, and 1994 volume 2 SEC 416. This is common judgment. This is used more often because it specifically says that actual service has to be proved. This is Ramesh Chandra Tyagi versus Union of India.
इसकी वो लास्ट पेज नंबर दोबारा बोलना.
1994 volume 2 SEC 416, Ramesh Chandra Tyagi versus Union of India. So actual service has to be proved. So in cases of ex parte inquiry, in case you are able to make your case that actual service was not done, they have not proved from the postman or from the person who has gone there to the effect that the charge sheet was given to the person by hand or by post, then you can get benefit out of it. Then, as I said, that the allegation of biasness has to be taken at the first instance itself. For that, I don't think that we need that. State Council need those judgments. But in case you want to write down, it is 1994 supplementary to SEC 256.
SCC
256.
Then there can be a case where certain witnesses are examined when the delinquent officer is not present. Then what will happen? The court says that all the witnesses have to be examined in the presence of the officer so that he comes to know what they have said. This is 1999, volume 1 SCT 303.
Page
is 303. I will give you a judgment on the point, on that point also, that the writ can be filed before the completion of inquiry also. I will just give you the judgment of that also. But thereafter, after the inquiry etc. is done, then in case the inquiry officer gives report and finding of your delinquent officer, but there is dissenting note by the authority, then you have to read the judgment of PNB versus Kunj Bihari Mishra. This is the main judgment which deals with the disagreement etc., where there is a disagreement, then how those disagreements have to be written etc.
Citation है.
This is AIR 1998, Supreme Court 2713.
पेज नंबर बताएंगे सर? पेज नंबर
2713.
2713. Then I told you that after the inquiry officer submitted its report to the punishing authority, then it has to be sent to the person, delinquent officer. This law was laid down in the case of ESI versus MD ECIL versus B Karunakar. This is the main judgment which said that there has to be 2 show cause notice. First show cause notice, which will be with the inquiry report only. Then there will be second show cause notice when they will consider everything and then they will give show cause notice. That is 1994, volume 1, SCT 319. Managing Director ECIL versus B. Karunakar.
$319.
हाँ जी.
319. Though this principle was laid down originally by the judgment of Union of India versus Ramzan Khan, 1991, volume 1, SCC 588, but you have to read B. Karunakar to understand what is first show cause notice, what is second show cause notice. Then there is very important judgment, because we have seen in lot of inquiries, the inquiry officer, on the basis of irrelevant facts which are not relevant to the proceedings, which were not part of the charge sheet, which were not part of the allegations, he based his finding upon those irrelevant facts. Or like in the case where the charge is framed that a person was absent from duty from X period to Y period, but there was no charge that he is habitual offender, he do it habitually. But during the inquiry officer, while giving finding, gives a finding that since he is a habitual offender, he has done it in past also on the basis of witnesses, etc. I am saying that he has done in the past also. So I am saying that he is a habitual offender. To come out from such tricky situation, you have to read this judgment, MU Bijlani versus Union of India, which says that inquiry officer cannot take into consideration irrelevant fact. Irrelevant facts are those facts which were not part of the charge sheet. MU Bijlani versus Union of India, 2006, volume 2, RSJ 740 is page number 740. I told you that the punishing authority can also, in certain cases, although there can be very less cases of that kind, but in certain cases can ask for re-investigation, re-inquiry. Now, this is a judgment of Union of India versus KD Pandey, 2003, SCC, within bracket L&S, Labor and Service, 791, which says that further inquiry on same allegations is nothing more than abuse of process of law. But
Name?
there are, name is Union of India versus KD Pandey. But there can be exceptions. I have told you the exception. Now, what will happen in the cases of sexual harassment? Whether in those cases also inquiry officer has to be appointed? The answer is no. In those cases, are you able to hear me?
Yes, yes.
सुन रहा है जी, बोलिए बोलिए भारद्वाज साहब.
Nilesh ji, now we can't hear you if you're speaking something. Nilesh, we
प्लीज
can't
पॉज इट, पॉज कर दो तब तक.
Of a person of below than the rank of the employee, or
नहीं देखो यहाँ पे ना एक पब्लिक सर्विस इंक्वायरी एक्ट 1850 का उसमें सारा प्रोसीजर दिया हुआ है हाउ द इंक्वायरी ऑफिसर कैन बी अपॉइंटेड. तो उस रूल्स के अंदर पब्लिक इंक्वायरी पब्लिक सर्वेंट्स ब्रैकेट में इंक्वायरीज एक्ट 1850.
So you mean to say inquiry officer can't be the punishing authority, but punishing authority can be the inquiry officer. That is how you want to say it?
नहीं, कहीं नहीं
ऐसा
लिखा.
भी नहीं, दोनों
नहीं,
पहला
they are
एक्ट
saying,
पहला
I think
एक्ट
that's,
पंचिंग अथॉरिटी का ही है, खुद ही इंक्वायरी कर सकता है वो.
but punishing
उनके
authority
पास
cannot
टाइम
be
नहीं
the
होता,
complainant.
इसलिए वो इंक्वायरी अफसर अपॉइंट करते हैं किसी को. ऑब्वियसली ओवर इन रैंक नहीं करते हैं कि वो सीधा ग्राउंड ऑफ क्वेश्चन बन जाता है. तो हमेशा हायर इन रैंक को करते हैं. डिलिंक्वेंट से हायर होना चाहिए. किसी वकील को कर सकते हैं, किसी रिटायर्ड जज को कर सकते हैं. तो जो भी इस एक्ट के अंदर कॉम्पिटेंट है उसको कर सकते हैं. देयर इज अ स्पेसिफिक एक्ट फॉर दैट.
But Nilesh, you were saying so that the inquiry officer, the punishing authority can't be the inquiry officer. That is
No.
Hmm.
First thing I told you is either he can take upon himself to inquire into the charges, or he can appoint inquiry officer, because he is a judge. Don't mix two things. He is not a complainant. In case
not a
he is a
complainant.
complainant, in case he is a complainant, then he will not do that.
सुपरिटेंडिंग इंजीनियर है, उसने जूनियर इंजीनियर के खिलाफ कंप्लेंट कर दी और बाद में पंचिंग अथॉरिटी ने उसी सुपरिटेंडिंग इंजीनियर को बना दिया इंक्वायरी ऑफिसर, तो वो
नहीं कर सकते. वो नहीं कर सकते. अदरवाइज पनिशिंग अथॉरिटी इज द मेन अथॉरिटी. वो तो कर ही सकती है.
ठीक है.
अच्छा, जस्ट टू सम अप, बस 2 जजमेंटें और रह गई है, उसके बाद वी विल टेक क्वेश्चंस एंड आंसर. तो आई वाज टेलिंग यू दैट इन केस ऑफ कंप्लेंट ऑफ सेक्सुअल
harassment,
there is no need to appoint inquiry officer. There is already a procedure given under the act. And हाँ जी, और जो उसके अंदर जो कमेटी है, it will be deemed to be the inquiry for that purpose. Then there can be a cases where a person is charged of a major offense which is for a major penalty, but before inquiry, after giving charge sheet, taking into consideration his reply, the authority deems it appropriate that the minor penalty may be given to him and the things can be done away with. These are done mostly in the cases where the person is to be promoted and the authority wants to give him certain benefits. Like in case the inquiry is pending against him, then he can't be considered for promotion. So in case the authority wants to give benefit to that person, what they normally do is they will take reply from him and give him minor penalty, and that's all. But our full bench in CWP number 3616 of 1999, KG Tiwari versus State of Haryana,
दोबारा बोलो भाई.
specifically said CWP 36
1999.
हेलो.
3616.
CWP नंबर के बाद कट गया.
3616
क्या कहा फुल बेंच ने?
KG Tiwari versus State of Haryana कि if charge sheet is issued under Rule 7, then complete proceedings are mandatory. ठीक है. और इन सब के का ना एक ही एक्सेप्शन है, सिर्फ बिना इंक्वायरी के भी बंदे को टर्मिनेट किया जा सकता है. There is only one exception, and that exception is given under Article 311 of Constitution itself. It is proviso, and it says that in case there are reason to believe that inquiry is not practicable, then the complete inquiry procedure can be done away with. A person can be thrown out of service there and then. Second, in case the governor or president are of the view that he has to be removed, they don't have to give even reasons for that. The authority has to give reasons why it is impractical to do inquiry. The governor and the president don't have to give even the reasons. They can be thrown out. So with that, I think we will conclude that, and in case there are certain questions, we can take that one by one.
मैं